Okay, welcome everybody, welcome back. I'm really happy to have everybody there once again. Thank you so much for listening to the show, for watching the videos, for also for joining the Patreon. I hope we create a giant thing there. Not giant in numbers, but in power and awareness. I hope we can create a very nice community in there. Where, well, I have lots of plans and ideas for it. So yeah, just go ahead and look for the link in the description. You can share this video and comment and like it, and yeah, just spread the word. And today I have a great guest. She's right there getting ready. We talked last time, and it was a great chemistry, a great connection together. And in between, we had a kind of powerful coaching session, I would say, I would call it. It was lots of questions, but they really helped me, like you said in the conversation, it helped me to express things out loud and to actually ask those questions. So that guidance was amazing. So with no further ado, I'm going to bring, she's already here. I'm going to say hello to Dani Katz. How are you?
I'm well, Rafa. How are you?
I'm well too, thank you.
Good. I was thinking this morning as I was getting ready that these are like the Aquarian Dialogues. It's like, This is what happens when you put two Aquariuses together.
And I've already had another Aquarius guest. His name is Daryl Robert Shun. I think it's Robert Daryl or Daryl Robert Shun. He's very, very interesting. And it's like, I just say blah, and he's for the entire show. Yeah, it's amazing. And we are like that, and it's a great time. Maybe we can try one day together to do something, the three of us. Let's see who can speak and who can't. So yeah, you're doing good, okay?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you.
Very nice. So, well, today I had a few ideas that just came right now as I was getting ready to start. Because I try to think of things like, okay, so what does this person that's coming on, what do they generally talk about, or what is my intuition about what they like to talk about? And so what I wrote down is topic idea, the healing of the human race. Okay, that was like the general idea that came to me today. And like, let's just talk a little bit about it, what you're seeing, because definitely we are in a very strange place as a collective humanity, but at the same time it feels like a very natural part of the process of evolution of consciousness, of awakening. I believe, and many people have said it, we are like going into our shadow, into our collective shadow. There's lots of let's call it shadow stuff, shadow material that's come up in the past, especially in the past 2 years, but it had been in an increase, the awareness of dark things or shadow things, from things that are very, very extreme and sci-fi and mystical and magical to more common things, such as trauma that's been, we've started using words to refer to certain types of wounds and childhood wounds and psychological wounds, which maybe weren't taught as much, just like 5 years ago. And I think we are in a very natural process, which has this. We are in the middle of transiting through the storm clouds. I guess we could imagine the thing flying through, and I know there is light on the other side, but this period is very, very intense. We've both had our share of dark nights of the soul, and I think that helps us to be sort of guides during this time, because we can see at a macro level that thing that happened in our own lives, and we can at the very least tell people that there is hope. And so what do you see about all that's happening?
I'm so intrigued. I love, it's always so helpful to hear how other people view my work and my attunement. So I love that you said healing of humanity. I was like, oh, that really resonates. And yeah, I mean, this whole thing, this experience is like a giant mirror saying like, look at where you're stunted, humanity. Like, look at where you're stuck and you're immature. And it's definitely an evolve or perish moment. I really don't see those who aren't willing or resourced or ready to evolve and integrate their shadows, making it through what we're going through. And then I see the powers that were playing upon our immaturity. It's like they know the weakest spots and then they're just kind of going after them. And I see it mostly, I saw it starting with identity politics and where that just like threw that wedge in to separate and playing on that, that underdeveloped sense of self and that need for social cachet, social credit by victimizing ourselves. So I saw that coming in around, I think I started writing about it intensely around 2012. And really started escalating around like 2015, 2016. And that's when I started to like kind of add a little more urgency to my content. And that's where I was saying, guys, this is dangerous. Like, don't take this bait. Enough with the identifying. It's fragmenting us. Now is really a time to unify. So I see that as one of our weakest points. And then I also, there's ego. Like, as you were speaking, I was thinking about, it's been this sort of heightened political moment here where I live in New Mexico because we just had our election on Tuesday. So for the past couple months, it's been, those who were running for office really making their pleas, and those of us who were involved in this conversation jumping in. And there was one candidate for school board that I had been very vocally supporting, and we kind of had each other's backs and were sharing each other's messages and, retweeting one another. And, I was offering some language support so that he could own his victory and all of that. And the election went horribly, Dominion voting machines and whatnot. And I posted something about, like, how legitimate do we really see this election with the Dominion voting machines? And his response was, don't speak negatively about voting or don't speak negatively about the machines. You'll discourage people to not vote. And it was interesting to note what had been a very harmonious exchange for several months. All of a sudden I was triggered and like, don't fucking tell me what to do. Do not tell me what I'm allowed to speak about and not. And it's noticing just like the trauma we're all carrying from this time, especially as a journalist, like that is the swiftest way to shut me down by telling me what I'm allowed to say. And then my response was, are you really attempting to impose your will upon me by policing my speech? And then he blocked me. And it was just so interesting, like, just like that, like 2 exchanges. And we went from like supporters and allies, and I still am, by the way, but to this, like how that ego is just like, ah! And all of a sudden we have fragmentation and we have conflict so fast.
Yeah, there's moments of greater tension where we get triggered and our ego starts with its bullshit and ignorance. And I was, you bring up, I get this thing, Aquarian thing of having like a million thoughts as you're speaking. I'm listening, but at the same time, a million things come up. And then when I'm going to speak them, I'm like, what was the thought? I kind of lost them. But I see that we are. Oh yeah, there's many things that came up in my mind, like I said. But for example, something that I think we need to learn, and that maybe it's not a very important word for me, is discernment. Yeah, but then we start to apply this discernment. There's so many areas where we are as a collective, we are not very discerning right now. And for example, one thing that we have is this idea that, for example, if someone is a professional, they are a doctor, for example, or a lawyer, or a scientist, an engineer, whatever, we think, oh, this guy is really smart. Okay, he's like a role model in a way. But then or a politician or whatever, right? And then for some reason you mentioned the voting machines, that triggered something in him, and he started behaving maybe like a 4-year-old, and then you're like, well, but wasn't this guy a leader, a role model? And what we need to discern and realize, I think, is how someone can be I know, I see in games, you know, how you have, I don't know, strength, agility, stamina, whatever, different areas in which the character can develop. Some people have this current society and this education system makes people be sometimes very evolved in one area, very specific, very niche. And in some other areas, as long as a problem doesn't come up, we tend to think that, oh, they must be more or less like that. But then something comes up and you realize the curtain falls down and you realize, oh, he's only extremely good at this one thing, kind of autistic, you know. So we're all kind of autistic, and we need to become more balanced in our, or not necessarily balanced, but we need to raise all of our abilities and all of our intelligences, is I think the kind of word we are using these days, the different types of intelligence. We need to raise those that are untrained and continue training the specific things, but it's very bad when you know how to, you're very good at, I'm very good at using computers and technology, but if it broke, I wouldn't have any idea what to do, right? So in a sense, similar to that, some people are very good at, for example, a very important thing right now is medicine. Some people are very good at surgery. So, okay, you have a problem, come here, I'll cut the thing out, problem solved. But you talk about other kinds of medicine within the very same thing of medicine, just talk about a different type of medicine, and they'll be, I don't know, I have to transfer you to a specialist, right?
Yeah, totally. So here's what's coming up as you're speaking is knowing our strengths and weaknesses, right? And just like knowing where, this is a circumstance where I'm researched to engage because I have the intelligence and the skills, and this is an area where I don't. So I was kicked out of my local co-op on Monday. I was in full compliance, but it's just like something in my energetic field. And I lost it, you know, the guard attacks me and tells me I need to leave. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm in full compliance. Like, what is your problem? And then I ended up like making the scene and like turning my bag upside down so all the groceries fall out. And then I storm out screaming, fuck you, fuck off, right? Totally lost it. So then the next day I go to my favorite hot springs and they have a very toxic front desk situation. And I had been trying to get in touch with the general manager to let them know and to offer some coaching around it, because it's my favorite hot spring and I don't want them to go out of business. And it's like really traumatic every time my friends and I go. So I went, and as I'm checking in, I asked if the manager was there so I could follow up. And, you know, the girl behind there was like a kind of lower tier manager behind the desk. And he said, no, you know, what is this regarding? And I said, oh, well, I'd reached out to offer some coaching around some communication issues I've seen at the front desk, and I wanted to support that. And then the clerk who was checking me out, she's like, well, it's not us, it's them. You know, they can't read the signs. And she just starts going off. And I wasn't triggered at all, but I was just interesting to note, like, wow, this person, like me, has not mastered state control. This is not an appropriate job for her. In the same way, it wouldn't be an appropriate job for me, you know? And just noticing, like, I'm not the right personality for a forward-facing customer service position. So, and that was helpful to see. And then I sent another letter to the general manager saying, look, I recommend that when you're hiring people, look for state control. Like, that's your ideal person, is someone who can be neutral. And so knowing our strengths and weaknesses and like where it's appropriate to insert ourselves with that knowledge and where it's appropriate to pull back.
And there we have many tools. Like, for example, you make me think of the Enneagram. You know about it? Yeah. So,
of course.
And we have so many. I don't remember the number, but the kind of artist introvert, something like that. I think it's a 4 or a 5. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And I actually worked on a front desk a long time. I actually worked in a hostel first and then in a hotel. And I am very good at that. Like somebody comes really mad. No, you have to give me the thing. And okay, just relax. Okay, well, let's see what we can do. I'm very good at that. It's like, whatever, this guy has a problem. It's not my problem.
Right.
But, oh yeah, so we have many tools to deal with that. So for example, in this idea you're saying of hiring people, I think in this, so part of what we're talking about, the healing of the human race, I divided it kind of in the past, what's happened, where we are and where we're going, right? And in the where we're going, I see that, for example, for a balanced workforce or work group, whatever, I think for us that we know about these tools, it's obvious that stuff like the Enneagram should be being used when hiring teams, because, oh, this number is very good at starting, but this number is very good at the next step and the next, and this thing connects with this and they work together well. And we should actually create, and one of my dreams is to one day create this kind of, I don't know what to call it, but an integral holistic chart of something, of a person, where you have the astrology, you have the human design, the gene keys, you have their Chinese, the elements, whatever percentage they have in some kind of study, you have the Enneagram, you have the everything, you know, all these charts like intertwined together. So, and which is kind of something that I think the gene keys and the human design have, they mix the I Ching and other things. Yeah. So get like a very clear picture of the person, you know, because some people you might say, oh, you're an Aquarius, oh, you're probably this way or that way. And they say, no, I'm not. In a way they are, they don't realize it because a few of their other charts would kind of prevent their Aquarius side to become aware of itself in a way. So I think if we could create one day something that contains like many different things, I look at every different astrology using the Vedic one, the Hellenic, using all different kinds of things. I see all of those as like little holes through which we look at a person and at their incarnation, at their soul, at their soul blueprint, their path. And if we were able to look through many of those holes at the same time, we would get a clearer picture. And to start using that in the society would be a pretty empowering step, I think.
I think this is brilliant. I love this idea. And I'm seeing it as like a subscription service where you can plug in someone's birth information and just get recommendations on their like ideal work environment, their ideal like means of engaging, the best ways to pair them up. I would also add to that spiral dynamics, which I've always seen as the way that I would want to do jury selection in the judicial system, like, because they say you're choosing we're choosing a jury of your peers, but it's based on this shallow nonsense. It's like, no, my peers are people who are operating at my level of consciousness, period, the end. So I would love to add spiral dynamics to that. This is such a great, like, it's so practical. I did work for a spiritual teacher for about a year, and she used the Enneagram as part of her hiring. And then I did apply for a job where they wanted to check my human design, and I knew what was going to happen. I didn't get the job. I once saw this human design chart that said it was like ideal jobs for every, 3-1, 4-1, whatever they were. And mine was unhireable. Oh, you know what it was? It wasn't human design, it was the Myers-Briggs. They were using the Myers-Briggs, and my Myers-Briggs was unhireable. But I agreed to like amalgamate all of those systems into one, in terms of also for like, you know how like rabbis will consult with a couple before they get married to help like determine and guide them. I don't know much about religion, but that would be helpful too, just to get kind of a bird's eye view on a synastry chart to see like, well, here are some challenges to be attuned to. And here are some tools that are going to help you guys with your unique set of challenges. Like there's so many applications for this. All right, we're going to have to stop the podcast and just move into brainstorming our new app.
Yeah, I think we are moving into a world. I call the podcast Mystic Times, because at the time that I started, I created the idea. I saw that this was 2019, before December was this. So I saw that there was this kind of maybe revival, resurgence, renaissance, whatever, of the more mystical arts, the different modalities, from massage to yoga to meditation to astrology, tarot, etc., so many things. And I saw it like such a bright future. Then in December or in January of 2020, it took a very weird turn, which I guess it's maybe looking back, I see we started like developing or manifesting our powers at a higher scale, at like more people and to a bigger impact worldwide. So that started coming up, and I guess with that came also the need to look at our shadow before we continued forward, I guess. So the need to look at our shadow manifested as this kind of, I hope this word can be said, this international dictatorship, that it was kind of a soft dictatorship before. It's been for who knows for how long, but now it's kind of very much in our faces. Still, some people don't see it. And I think it's okay for different people to wake up at different points. And so we're moving into my point is that we're moving into a mystic world, is what I would call it. This guy, maybe you know about him, he's called Cliff High. He called this sci-fi world, which was like totally, if you look at the UFO and all the weird kind of paranormal things that are starting to happen, the AI, the technology, etc., the sci-fi world is a great description. For me, I see it also as a mystic world, as I don't know, an alchemical world, a hermetic world, I don't know. So we're moving towards that. So that's why I think creating something that englobes all very many different modalities of interpreting personality, including stuff like that Myers-Briggs or I think Jung had his own in 4 quarters, like introverts and extroverts. I'm not very acquainted with it, and use many different ones. And what I mean is that I see a mystical world. When I imagine this world, they use this type of thing. Because it's like, why would you hire 2 people that by looking at this, they wouldn't get along? It's like totally senseless. And if you know that they would work better at another place or at being their own boss, having their own being entrepreneurs and having their own business maybe. And so finding the strengths, and like when a child is born, throwing like 100 different things and knowing, oh, okay. And not getting stuck in the box of, oh, so this guy has to do this, and if you don't do what your astrology says, you're going to prison. Not to get too extreme, because that's a pitfall, I guess, of the thing, but to be open from heart, an open heart, being okay. So let's point or move people towards their gifts. Let's recognize finally that it's not that tabula rasa, that you don't come in as a blank slate. You come with certain inclinations, affinities, certain likes and dislikes. And if you don't just come with that, you definitely grow into them during your first years. So it's very important to see that those things, astrologies, etc., they can tell the story kind of beforehand and give us an idea of where individuals and cultures can start moving.
It's really synchronistic that you're bringing this up today, which, by the way, is the new moon in Scorpio. Happy New Moon.
I'm a Scorpio moon.
Thank you for being a Scorpio moon. Deep bow, high service to humanity. today I started the Pearl retreat as part of the Gene Keys transmission, and the Pearl sequence in the Gene Keys is all about your vocation and your work in the world and your prosperity. And the way that it's designed is it tells you your ideal work environment, like your ideal culture, your ideal brand. And yeah, we don't come in, no one comes in as a blank slate. Like, we've done this so many times. So we all come in with, you know, predilections for challenges and predilections for gifts. And it's helpful to know that. And I have spent the last year, maybe 2 years, doing quite a bit of research on heterarchy, because I have been, the book that I'm writing now, it had started off as how to evolve our culture from hierarchy to heterarchy with language. But I've come out the other side, and I'm not necessarily clear that heterarchy is where we're going, but I do believe that heterarchy is a place along the way. It's like a stop that's going to take us to a higher, you know, more synarchic means of organization. But
what is hierarchy? I have kind of an idea, but not sure.
Heterarchy, aside from being a clunky mouthful that's not super fun to say, is a system of organization that doesn't privilege anyone over the other. So in hierarchy, which is, we're all living in hierarchy. I'm sure there are some tribes that aren't. I actually know the Navajo Nation is well, it is even matriarchy is hierarchy. But so hierarchy is an organizational structure that always privileges one group over the other. So you're always going to have a marginalized subclass under hierarchy, like what they're trying to do with white men now. In heterarchy, that's not built into the system. Now, hierarchy is natural. There will always be organic hierarchy because we all have different gifts and strengths. But there's been this like inorganic overlay of hierarchy over our culture, and definitely in our language. So as I've been studying heterarchy and I've been speaking to people who are working in different organizations, it's a very feminine and open-ended system where they're just attuned to like, okay, here are all the ingredients that we're working with. What is the best way to alchemize? Versus with hierarchy, it's like, here's the structure we're overlaying, and you guys need to, we're just going to shove you into these places, even when it's not an organic fit. So this feels like, your idea feels like a beautiful means of working within heterarchy, to just look at, because then you could see, like, you could create your teams based on what's going to be most harmonious. And, you know, some people, and this is what I know from the Gene Keys, some people work better alone. Some people work better one-on-one, you know, like the way that, you know, I do as a coach or you do as a sound healer. Some people work better in small groups. So even to just have that one tiny piece when you're putting together your organization, that would be so helpful to create, okay, this is going to be a triad. You guys are going to work as a pair. You guys are going to work all 10 together. Like that in itself would create so much more harmony and coherence in an organization. And that's just like one tiny little tendril of an application of what you're proposing.
And just another question. You mentioned spiral dynamics. Is that connected to integral philosophy? Ken Wilber? Is that spiral dynamics?
So Wilber got it from Claire Graves. It's funny how everyone associates it with Wilber, but Claire Graves was actually the behavioral scientist who came up with spiral dynamics, and then Ken Wilber did what he did with it. Because
what he did is kind of similar to what I'm saying, as that he like surveyed the terrain, let's say, and got like took different bits from different things to create a kind of more bird's eye view thing. So I think that he inspires me, and I was trying to remember if spiral dynamics had something to do with Ken Wilber, because it sounded like it was connected. So thanks for clarifying that.
I think Ken Wilber gave it a lot more attention and like took, you know, like we all do. It's, you know, it's all a big like relay. It's not even a race. It's a relay evolution. Like we pick up where our predecessors left off, and we take it farther, and then someone else is going to come along after we go and take our work and unpack it more.
I believe it's naturally perfect. I mean, I don't mean to say that because Ken Wilber said something or because some other person. I mean, the thing about the egos and the person through which the information comes is just irrelevant. I mean, we can see, we can kind of feel reflected in somebody in one way or in another, and that's okay for the interpersonal thing. But the main thing that we are doing is I was reading or listening actually to a book by Walter Russell, who is kind of hard to follow, but what he was saying reminded me of how what we are actually doing is we are bringing the inside of ourselves to the outside, something like that. So we are, and McKenna talked about stuff like this, like we are living in the project, in the manifestation of our imagination, something like that. So we are going through this process of reconnecting with the soul and remembering that it's there and that it has a role to play in the physical life of humans. And the other day, so listening to Walter Russell, I wrote down a quote that I think comes very good to what we're saying. He said, "Higher knowledge comes from cosmic thinking towards one's inner immortal mind self, as opposed to the conclusions which we call knowledge, which come from outer sensing by the mortal brain self." So he talks about the mind self and the brain self. And I think like very big companies today, when they are, I don't know why we're talking about hiring and companies, but many big companies today that are kind of very influential, but they are setting a kind of a bad example, I guess. People are being hired because of their brain self, is what I think. They are hired because, oh, you have this title or you studied this very narrow thing, come to the company because you know this. And people, then there is the dynamics of interrelationship between people in the work environment. There's the inner thing of, yeah, this guy studied this, but he's meant, quote unquote, to do this other thing. So you're bringing him here, he's going to be very good in the numbers, but he's going to be very stressed and suffering because in his soul, he's not doing the work he wants to do.
Yeah, it is interesting that we're talking about this. It's it's very alive for me right now, but it keeps coming back to hierarchy, which is interesting because I'm kind of taking a break from this book, but it's all coming back.
Let me add one small thing. The other reason why I remembered Ken Wilber, and I forgot to the idea, so that's why I bring it up now. The other thing is connected to this. I can't remember the name exactly he used, but he talks about hierarchy of dominion, let's say, and he mentions hierarchy of something else. I can't remember right now. So I guess he's seeing that there is another way of like organizing. I wish I could remember the name, hierarchy of something. So we are in the other one, hierarchy of, I guess he calls it dominion, hierarchy of.
I'm looking it up now. Ken Wilber.
Yeah. I remember listening to him say it in a video, but then I tried Googling it and I couldn't like find the words exactly to search for it.
Okay, so they're mentioning his 4-quadrant model. They're mentioning, I mean, there's a lot about spiral dynamics, which is alleged. It comes across as it's weird because it's like a hierarchy of consciousness, but I know when Claire Graves was writing about it, he made a point of saying there's no like qualitative better or worse here, which is why he ascribed colors to them instead of like a numerical system. But I think we're just so entrained towards hierarchy that it's hard for us to see outside of it.
Yeah,
we're always applying these gradations of better, worse to things.
Just the word itself means, or is so loaded that what I understand from the idea of what I remember hearing him say is that we have this kind of hierarchy which is negative and is always like dominating, and he was proposing another kind of hierarchy, which if this one is negative, maybe in a horizontal kind of hierarchy would be better, and it would probably not be called a hierarchy, and maybe that's connected to the heterarchy that you're mentioning.
Oh, see, now I'm gonna need, so he is talking about holarchy. This book is just, it's requiring a lot of intellectual expansion to write it. Yeah, so I forget where we were at with like
companies hiring based on the intelligence alone. Hiring.
Yeah, it just feels like it's a more, I just keep coming back to like hierarchy and these few organizations that are actually implementing it. And like that is really the true integration of the divine feminine. And there's this like huge misunderstanding in our culture, and it is massive, that the return of the divine feminine means putting women in power and that fixes it. And the return of the divine feminine might mean more women in power when we make the actual changes that it's inviting us to make. That might organically formulate itself, but it is not about just running with the same system and the same demented, out of balance mindset and changing the positions of the pieces on the chessboard when the game itself is broken. And what it is it's a mindset of like, you know, honoring emotion and intuition and mysticism and the unseen to the same extent that we honor reason and logic, and not coming in with a self-imposed structure and trying to force people into that structure, whether they fit or not, but instead, you know, being much more feminine around it as far as being curious and open. These are the players we have. This is our goal. How do we use all of these things that we have in the most effective and efficient way to achieve the goal? And that takes a real like fluid, flexible thinking. That's the feminine. It's not like these people have vaginas, so now they're our leaders. That's just stupidity.
Yeah, that's still identity politics playing. And you made me think, and I just imagined like this Congress and the different seats, and the thing is, mandatory seats for ghosts, mandatory seats for aliens from whatever, and we are a very accepting society.
I swear that's where we're going to be next year, is like inclusivity and like how many aliens and demons do you have on your team? It's so silly.
It's totally, I see it kind of like as a baby step towards it, because before, definitely women, for example, were not being taken into consideration in the system, let's say. Now at least, okay, they are. Well, now we need to actually go where we should have gone before, deeper, which is we need to change the system itself, not just who is the guy sitting on the same car. No, let's change the car is what we're proposing, right?
Exactly. And the other piece, I mean, you totally hit the nail on the head, but it's interesting to also see like that it's being branded as feminism, like smash the patriarchy, kill the it's like that's patriarchy. That violence, that need to be on top and shove men down and brand it like progress for women is patriarchy. And that's what's just so maddening to watch, is like, you know, we just have to pull way back to the macro. They just need to consult with the Aquarians and our super wide angle lens, and we'll fix it all up for them.
Yeah, I've had actually, you see here, I wrote down reawakening the divine feminine. That was another one of the things that maybe for the second half. So I have a big question around this thing of feminism, because maybe like you just said, it's the Aquarius in me, also the man. But I see, and I also see the same kind of dynamic going on in racism and discrimination of other kinds. It's like, I understand that people whose identity and has been discriminated against for maybe their whole lives, and they know from history that it's been going on from even before they were born. And so I can understand people being angry when you wake up. It's like a spiritual awakening. You wake up, oh, what the hell? September 11 was not what they say, it was something else. Oh my God, oh, the corona, oh, what? When you start waking up, one of the first reactions is anger, and you hate the system and you hate your parents because, oh, they don't know anything. Oh, that. Okay, so, but I know that the process of healing requires us to go from the different steps. You know, we need to at some point the anger needs to be put aside or needs to be transmuted into forward movement of more peace. So I see the movement with feminism and with racism. I see there's still so much anger. And on the one hand, since my physical body is of and my genes are like of one side of the coin, let's say, I kind of understand, okay, if I were to say this to somebody who's been discriminated against and who's lived such a strong life, a strong life situation, I understand it would not, it could be taken the wrong way. So I tend to keep my opinions to myself in that sense, or to like very close friends, or right now with you and with everyone else watching, that because I see your openness. In spite of being a woman, you're able to say something that when I talk to other women, they're like, no. Like, for example, maybe I'm making just a caricature of the thing, but no, we're angry and you men need to understand our anger. And I get it because I've also been in I don't know, arguments with my girlfriend. And I know that when you hurt the other person, or when they hurt you, you need a moment to like feel your anger and be angry, and maybe you say something strong back to the other person. But I know that eventually there needs to be forgiveness, there needs to be coming together, and forgiveness and coming together don't work well if there's still anger in the center of the thing.
Yeah, I'm happy that you feel safe talking about this with me. I think it's really important that men and women have these conversations together, and there's this like weird, like completely inorganically imposed sort of precept that men aren't allowed to talk about these things.
It's your time to listen. We've been on the receiving end for so long. Now you need to shut up and listen. Okay, yeah. I need to shut up and listen, but you need to chill down a little.
Yeah, also. I mean, that is straight up violence and not okay. We're all allowed to speak about everything because we all share the human experience. So that is violence and attempting to control and impose our will by silencing men. That's not okay. The thing is that we live in a world of polarities, of equal and opposite forces. So if the masculine's out of balance, then so is the feminine. Yeah. It's always both. And we cannot heal it in a vacuum of just women talking about women and berating men. That's not going to happen. And men have had a really hard time, as we're all victims of patriarchy and hierarchy, all of us. And this thing about women, you know, berating men and vilifying men and blaming men and telling them to shut up is making the problem way worse. It's not going to heal it. So you're from Uruguay, yes? So when I was in Argentina, I spent a little bit of time in San Telmo, and what I learned in San Telmo, and I learned a little bit about tango, a tiny bit. And what I learned was that yes, while it's the man's role to ask the woman to dance, so he initiates that, he only initiates when the woman has made eye contact and indicated energetically that she's open. So what I've learned from that is women lead. Women, it's actually on women to be open first. And from that state of open, approving acceptance, then men can step in. And right now it's totally the opposite, because women are being engineered and programmed to shut men down. There's zero space for healing in the way that this is being manipulated right now. And, you know, I will say as a woman, and granted, I grew up in California in the United States, so it was probably as open and free, as empowering as it could be. I never felt disempowered for being a woman. There are instances, of course, but as far as my overall experience, I did not have the experience of walking through the world like I can't do X, Y, Z because I'm a woman. That's something that seems to have been dropped into the collective, at least in the States, where we've had equal rights for my whole life, as part of this giant coup that we're witnessing now. And women taking the bait, I don't fault them, because, you know, the power, these manipulation ops are very strong. But I'm not going to buy it, and I'm not going to sign on to being a second-class citizen, because I'm not. And I've had every opportunity that every man has, and I've made the most of that. And because of that, I live an empowered life where I get to do what I want to do. It's when we buy into the victim stories that then we create reality constructs and experiences that will mirror back that belief. But those beliefs, in the States at least, I don't believe are coming organically. I think that they've been dropped in through this whole identity politics manipulation scheme that we're dealing with.
Yeah, and our childhood traumas, they can run the personality from behind the scenes without us even realizing. So, and I'm not saying because I mean women have been discriminated against. I'm happy you didn't feel that way, because I know that, I don't know, just walking down the street and somebody whistling to you, that's, in a certain way, that is a kind of abuse. It's like uncalled for. But at the same time, I understand. I mean, yeah, of course, if somebody, like, I don't know, you're walking down the street and they touch your butt, that's a little bit more extreme. But I don't know, if somebody whistled to you in the street, okay, maybe I'm not in a place to say, because I'm just in my imagination thinking that wouldn't be that bad. I mean, people should be free to whistle to you, but at the same time, you should be free to not have to receive whistles from the outside. So I don't really know how to meld those two freedoms, let's say. But really, what would help that is not to just focus on the micro thing and go, okay, so now we want to pass a law that you can only whistle in this case and you can only receive whistles in that. We should try to go outside. You know, in the East, they say asleep people focus on the effects, awakened people focus on the cause. So with our legal system, so with this imbalanced masculine feminine dynamic that's going on, we are focusing all the time on the effects. So, okay, so an oil spill, okay, let's get a law that puts some financial thing on the oil company. No, let's try not to have companies that drop oil in the water. Let's go back. And if you go back and back, it's the masculine feminine dynamic. And if you go individually into that, it's the way you're raised, how the masculine feminine dynamics perhaps of the parents, their energies, I mean, how you're raised, what situations you go through and how you are held within them. And there's some things in your life that no matter what the context, no matter how good you are held by the world, you internally might perceive it in a way that is disempowering and create a mental impression that continues forward and is detrimental to you. But okay, that's what your karma you gotta work with. But my point, I think, is that we need to look, like you said, the Aquarians, you know, bird's eye view. I like also in human design, I'm a projector, and I understand that projectors are very good at looking from a bird's eye view. So they're very good at seeing somebody and say, okay, you would thrive if you went over to this environment, something like that. I believe we're good at that. And since I found the human design, it's a lens that's amazing to see, oh, wow, I am good at those things. I am very intuitive, etc. And yeah, this is just a rambling. I don't know where I'm going.
Well, I'd like to speak to, and I totally agree the thing about the human design. I love this idea of yours, and I see it really providing a lot of value to the planet. As far as being whistled at, which I don't like I'm not someone, no, I do not like being overly sexualized or objectified on any level. And I tailor my presentation accordingly. And anyone who sees me knows that, because I am aware that we're mammals. Like, do you see any mammals in the wild where it is safe between the sexes? None. In any animal species, you know, you have the black widow. Now that one, the female has the upper hand, but she'll eat the male. But in others, the male will just like grab a female by the scruff of the neck, have his way with her. It's not safe. This world isn't safe. And this is part of the issue we're dealing with, is that people want it to be safe. It's never going to happen. The gist is alchemy. It's learning how to work with one another. So, you know, and men and women are wired differently. So whereas a woman will see a man and she thinks he's attractive, and then the fantasy will be like happily ever after, and we're going to get married, and he's going to build me a house, and he's going to protect me. A man sees a woman wearing, you know, like booty shorts and a crop top, and blood goes to his penis and he wants to penetrate. There's nothing wrong with that. That's biology. Like, that's how we're wired. So the gist is understanding how we're wired. What is the safest way to relate with that? So, you know, we've all learned, and it's not safe. And of course I've had uncomfortable interactions with men, but they teach me, we learn along the way. That's what college is for, which is why it's so crazy that they're imposing these rules of like, you have to sign consent things and whatnot. It's like, no, we have to learn how to say no. We have to learn, no, actually that was pushing my boundary too far. I need to pull back. If we don't have the space and freedom to go over our edges, then we're never going to find authentically what our edges are. And that is not safe, you know? And we're also not teaching, you know, for me, I feel like the whole Me Too thing is insane. And the best thing to do is to go into junior highs and teach girls how to say no, and just practice saying no, and, you know, stating our boundaries in real time, so that when we're in those situations, we have the practice, we have the voice. So I don't think, yes, I would prefer not to be whistled at, but sometimes it's funny, and I'll just stop and like do a little shimmy and play with the guys and like remind them I'm a human being. I'm not just an object, like I'm a person. And then, you know, invite them into the conversation. It's just, we have to learn, and we need the freedom to make mistakes and to screw up. None of this is to say rape culture is okay, but it's not to shame men for being men, especially when, you know, coming from Los Angeles and seeing how girls or women and girls a lot of the time like are presenting themselves and walking around, you know, basically sexual signaling. And like, we have to teach people, okay, that's great that you love your nipples. I love my nipples too. But if we're walking around with them exposed, you have to know that you are signaling to men that you are sexually good to go. That's how we're wired, straight up. So you can't shame a tiger if you wave raw meat in front of it and it acts like a tiger. You have to understand I'm dealing with a tiger. So what's the smartest, safest way for me to relate with the tiger?
Yeah, for me, the question is, where is what is biology and what is culture, right? So how much of these type of dangerous, whatever, behaviors from men or from women, how much of them are because of our wiring, like you say, and how much are because of conditioning and habit and repetition, and because you go out and you see billboards with women with little clothes all the time, or the sexy male model or whatever, and you're like constantly being sexualized. So then when somebody is kind of wearing light clothes or whatever, this psychological manipulation that's being done. I remember since I was very small, I always, not very, very small, but like in my young teenage years, I would say, oh, marketing is the devil, you know? And what I meant at the time is they are using the knowledge that they have of human psychology to hack the brain and to hack the person into doing whatever they want. They are like mind controlling, manipulating people through subconscious or unconscious things. And that for me was, wow, this is the devil to do that. And so I think another one of the moves towards this more enlightened, free, mystic society has to do with that, like making people aware of the fact that they have subconscious stuff that can be manipulated, and gaining the discernment being kind of like a shield, So when they are trying to manipulate you, you see it like a mile away, because I don't think the solution would be, okay, so marketing is forbidden and this type of marketing can't be done. I think it's more real and a real transformation and evolution if it happens naturally. So if marketers eventually stop wanting to use those type of strategies, they actually see, oh, people, they have one of the powers of the characters has been increased so much that now they can discern and they can see through the bullshit of the sexualization in advertisements. So we shouldn't use this anymore because it just doesn't work. I think that is a real change, as opposed to what we're doing today, looking at effects and putting band-aids on the things, right?
Yes, completely. And it's, you know, it's everything that we're seeing now in our culture is like the puppet masters behind the scenes manipulating us to A, buy into their fuckery, and then B, blame each other for it. So now you have some women blaming men and berating men, and no one's looking above to like, hey, it's the Madison Avenue advertising people who are deciding to sexualize women, who have programmed men to behave this way. And now instead of putting your anger and, you know, your indignation towards those puppet masters who've created this system, you're taking the bait and you're taking it out on your fellow human being. And that's the, like, any issue we're dealing with, it comes back to like, look up to the puppet masters, unify with your brothers and sisters, and redirect that energy towards untangling ourselves from their manipulations, exactly as you're talking about.
Mm. And it's sad because the ones with the lowest level of consciousness are the ones who have the tools to use these kinds of manipulations. Because, you know, I have my days when I'm like, oh yeah, conspiracies and manipulation and all that. And to a certain degree, I would say that there is some of that. But at the same time, I also have my days when I'm like, yeah, okay, they're manipulating, but because they are absolutely ignorant, traumatized children, even more so than me, even more so than the people that go and buy the stuff, they are so much more traumatized that they don't see anything wrong with what they're doing. It's just like, oh, so if I use, if I place a booty on the ad, I get more digits, wins, and the person gets the jeans that they wanted to buy or whatever, and but they don't see anything wrong with that. And I think those people, maybe they're going to be like very far down the list of people coming to an awakening, or maybe not. Maybe in some twist of fate, those are the people who start waking up, and for that reason they stop. Oh, hey, I'm not gonna use this type of thing anymore. I'm going to. It's like sometimes, you know, they started, oh yeah, go organic, and they put fresh vegetables. So in a certain way, that's better. Okay, it got corrupted in a little way also, but for a certain reason, they didn't necessarily, although there must be examples, they didn't exactly decide, okay, let's put something sexual in the lettuce commercial. There probably isn't, but again, I'm rambling. I think we are touching very important points about the direction that human culture is moving, human beings, and our whole collective system. And one thing I would like to remind people of is that we are more than just our body. We are energy first. We are something very subtle first that kind of like goes you guys use the trickle down economics, but it's kind of like a trickling down of something very subtle, like air, even more subtle than air. It trickles and it kind of gets condensed and crystallized until it becomes material reality, and it's not the other way. And so we need to start focusing more and more and giving space within our week, within our days, to this part of ourselves, which is actually the only part of ourselves that actually exists and that actually has any say in what's happening. It's that thing that is actually right now looking through my eyes, looking through Dani's eyes, looking through your eyes. There is this one thing that is energy, you can call it. It's shooting out of our eyes, for example, right? And it's looking at ourselves in the other. And it goes through many different filters, but the important thing is that we are all one, we are all going to be okay. And the role we have here is to just remember that. I think that is like the very first cause that as awakened beings we need to focus on. If we were all able to just remember, if they dropped a virus that help people, that make people remember who they are, every problem would be solved instantly. Not that bad quote unquote things wouldn't happen, but that we would be like completely ready for the moment and we would be clear to know what to do when whatever happened. That would be an enlightened society. Please, I'm not saying that anybody should release a virus to wake people up. It was just an idea.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like, and I'm going to bring us full circle back to spiral dynamics, is that if I don't know that awakening really works like that, because it's experiential, right? And I see, the person coming to mind is the bulletproof guy, Dave so-and-so, and he's used a lot of like technology to target areas of his brain where he's been holding trauma and heal them. But I can feel when he speaks that it's not integrated through the emotional body. It was never felt, right? So there's kind of this like almost robotic feeling to it. And I feel like evolution has to be an organic thing. We have to feel our feelings and feel, the traumas to integrate and quantum leap to the next level. And as far as, you were talking about the manipulators, the Madison Avenue types who are creating these marketing campaigns, they're not at a level of awareness or consciousness to really understand what they're doing. And that goes back to spiral dynamics of they're operating from that first tier me consciousness, whereas you and I are looking, we're living into a society that is modeled and organized on second tier principles, service to all of us. And as I see us moving forward, obviously the old systems are crumbling. Like there's no getting around it. I feel like it's the people with the most expansive consciousnesses, the people who are operating at second tier levels, who I am holding the vision of stepping into positions of power and making the decisions that are going to allow us to set up the new systems and course correct our earth ship, because the people who are operating at the most expansive levels of consciousness can see the farthest and can be trusted to make decisions in service to the whole. What I see as being the biggest impediment is that the people operating at these levels of consciousness, from my experience, have no interest in leadership or in those positions. But I feel like that's what would be the most service to the planet, would be for those people to be the ones determining where we go next.
That's interesting. Maybe we can close the first hour with this idea. I just wanted to add that, on the thing of leadership, maybe if you're saying that, maybe this means that this mystic world, this new world we are creating, this new earth, maybe this heterarchy, holarchy, it's not so much of leadership. What would be a different kind of thing? One of my spiritual teachers, he talked about a new kind of political system, and he described it, which instead of 3 powers had 5 powers. But basically, one of the differences as well in the very center of the thing is that the different political roles were open for all the people living in the country, and they were cyclical, let's say. So you could be the governor or the legislator or the whatever for like, I don't remember the time, but let's say for a month, for 15 days, it's your job. You don't get paid for it. It's your service to the community. And then after that, somebody else comes, you can go to another, or you can just continue with whatever is your private practice or private work. But every now and then, just like the jury duty that you were saying, that you guys have the thing that they pick people, oh God, I got jury duty. So you would get the opportunity to serve the community and the country through doing some work in government, but it's just a very short period and you don't get paid for it. So there's an avoidance of corruption in that sense. I think it was a pretty good idea, and maybe it helps with this. It's like nobody is the president. It's more like different peoples fulfill the different roles, kind of like maybe like ants in an ant colony, but they don't always do the same thing. They are able to go to different parts, and so decisions are made in community. Because if you told me to be a lawmaker, I'm not an expert. So if you had to put me there and in 15 days I was able to bring some laws, I might make many mistakes. So the fact is we would all get like informed and etc. And again, the thing would be a rotative or rotating thing along the years. That's a pretty good idea. Mm-hmm. Right? Well, okay. So if you like, we can close this first hour. We can take a short break. And I want to thank people for being there. Please remember, you can find the second half in Patreon. I'm going to leave the link in the description. I'm also going to leave links to Dani's website and to Dani's Instagram, most likely. But at the same time, please go ahead and share it with people that are listening. Oh, I mean you. Sorry, yeah, no, please, Dani, share your
okay,
links.
so you can find me at DaniKatz.com. That's kind of like my umbrella site to all my other sites. Definitely subscribe to my video channels on Odyssey. You can get my podcast there and all my Words Are Matter videos there. I post daily on Instagram, so follow me there, and I'll see you on the Patreon. Okay, very good. So thank you, everybody. Namaste, and see you soon. Bye-bye. Bye.